Humanity has sought to understand suffering, perhaps since the very beginning. The visceral and personal nature of the question is much deeper than an abstract philosophical inquiry, because to understand suffering forces us to inquire into the meaning of reality, the purpose of life. Begs the question, are we here just to suffer? What's the meaning? In ancient India, we have the Upanishads, the Four Noble Truths taught by the Buddha, and there's the famous line that life is suffering because we desire. Ancient Greece, in all its storytelling mastery, we have the Prometheus mythology posing deep questions about why an all powerful Zeus would allow suffering. Pre Socratic philosophers like Pythagoras and Democritus pondered the nature of human misery. The ancient Greek myth of Pandora's box is one of the earliest origin stories attempting to account for the proliferation of human suffering. In the ancient Middle East, we have the biblical book of Job, arguably the earliest extended examination of human suffering and existential questions about divine justice. Ancient Babylonian works, like the Epic of Gilgamesh, contain elements about grief, death, and the impermanence of life. In ancient China, we have the Taoist and Confucian thinkers like Lao Tzu, Zhuangzi, and Sun Tzu. I totally butchered that, of course. They explored the inevitability of human suffering and cultivating inner equanimity. The Buddho-Taoist synthesis that emerged pondered the roots of human discontent. The Gnostics took this a step further. They would conclude that the world is ruled by a demiurge. It's the archons, this existence itself is akin to a hell or a prison, because everything must consume other living beings to survive, making us essentially vampires. Now, can you think of a system that's more brutal? You must kill to live. Through scientific inquiry and empirical reason, suffering is nature's way of spurring on survival, reproduction, and evolution. Without struggle, life ceases to exist. As evidenced by experiments like the mouse utopia, we see that when there is total abundance, when there is no challenge, social order breaks down. It's like a muscle. When you don't work it, when you don't challenge yourself, you fall apart because there's no reason to do it. So, how did they all answer this question? What is the solution that these different viewpoints give to us? Ancient Indian thoughts, the Hindu Vedic texts, like the Upanishads, posited that suffering arises from attachment, ignorance of our true divine nature, and the illusion of separateness from Brahman, God. Buddhist teachings identified suffering's root causes as cravings, aversion, a misconception of what reality truly is. The solution was following the Eightfold Path, which is essentially to do away with desire, because in the Eastern view of suffering, it is because we don't have what we desire. If we don't desire something, not having it doesn't bother us. Now, this was taken also into the West by asceticism somewhat. There are still actually Christian sects of asceticism, and it did find its way into Christian thought. And what asceticism essentially is minimalism. It is to do away with what one does not need, to desire nothing, to live the simple life, to be humble. This was not uniquely a Middle Eastern or an Eastern idea. We have Diogenes and the Cynics following this same idea to an extreme. And there's that funny story about Diogenes. He had gotten rid of pretty much all of his possessions. He was the son of a banking family. He ran away. He freed his slave, uh, and he just kind of started living on the streets. And he had a bowl to his name, uh, a bowl for drinking and eating. And he saw a child by a river drinking from his hands. And Diogenes thought to himself, "Oh, I'm so materialistic. Look at this kid. He doesn't need a drinking bowl. Why do I?" So he threw it away. So in the ancient Greek philosophy, the pre-Socratics like Pythagoras saw suffering as punishment for wrongs in past lives, and we do see karma as a almost universal idea from the West and the East. Um, it was not unique to Buddhism, right? And there's debates about why this is, and I think that there were common inspirations. That these different belief systems come from a common root, and it could go as far back as an Indo-European sort of idea. So the Stoics, like Epictetus, emphasized accepting what we can't control and living virtuously. And the Stoics transformed the idea of cynicism, and they didn't take it to quite the extreme that the Cynics did. The Cynics believed in total self-rejection, total rejection of materiality and desire. The Stoics took more of a moderate route to this, and their approach was more to enjoy the simple things in life. To not need what is not abundant to somebody, what is unreliable. So, if we're to derive happiness from, say, power and money, which are fleeting things, that's going to lead to suffering, when we could enjoy something like the sunlight, uh, like drinking water, the simple things, the things that we can rely on. We can derive happiness from these and have greater contentment. We can practice virtue. And this was a big idea in Greece and Greco-Roman thought, was that we could achieve happiness from virtue. And virtue wasn't necessarily just rejecting material reality or rejecting desires necessarily, but it was to transmute the lower into the upper. There was this idea that what separates humans from animals is that we transcend beyond our mere survival and our more base animal instincts, and to cultivate things that we would consider higher, more divine. Plato had the idea of the divine forms, that everything in life was trying to achieve this divine status. It was trying to reach upwards into this perfect form, right, to reach its state of perfection, which is similar to almost like an evolution of the soul, so to speak. But it wasn't just life, it was every object, everything that exists has a perfect form in the heavens. It's a very interesting idea. The Platonists believed that the world was flawed and that suffering stemmed from the soul's entrapment in the body. We're trapped in imperfection and we're trying to reach that higher state. In the ancient Middle Eastern view, the biblical book of Job explores whether suffering is a test or punishment from God, or paradoxically, if this allows for growth. Judaism's answer evolved from suffering was due to disobedience, to a more nuanced perspective of the world, that we didn't see things the right way, right? We lack understanding, and this is what leads to suffering, because when we don't make sense of something, it becomes meaningless. Now, with suffering, if we're to say that, for example, if we're working out, we understand that there's pain, but that's okay because there's a higher purpose to this. We understand what this pain means. There is a meaning and there's an understanding to it, and it's part of a higher process, so it's okay. And actually, we can come to enjoy these sort of things. Right, so that's the way that Judaism kind of sees it.